Okay, the truth is, I didn't want to be in business for ourselves. My parents were in business for themselves, and it was really hard on their marriage. And my husband's parents were in business for themselves, and it was really hard on their marriage. It's like life is too difficult as it is, and marriage is too complex without adding all the extras of having a business on top of it. But the truth is that God called us into business, so we had to figure it out the long, hard, slow way. How to be effective in marriage and in business. And the good news is, it is possible.
We've come to a point of believing that a power couple is one that's on the same page in all aspects of life, fulfilling a common vision. It's a couple that isn't perfect, but's always working and wanting the best for each other and our marriage. And the design, well, it's God's design to have a thriving marriage and a prosperous business.
Your hosts, Robert and Kaylee Fakui, are a married couple in business. And they've experienced their own journey of ups and downs in life and business, but have developed tools along the way through a mix of trial and error and counseling to build a life worth living and sharing. And now they're inviting you to join them on their journey so they can share what they've learned and bring you along with them.
Over the coming episodes, you'll hear from Robert and Kaylee, as well as other power couple guests, to equip and encourage you to build a thriving marriage and prosperous business. It will be one part marriage coaching, one part business consulting. You may laugh, cry, shout, or cheer, but we mainly want to encourage you in your journey as husband and wife and business owner. You will learn a few things along the way as well. Welcome to the Power Couples by Design podcast.
And we're back with I'd say episode 5, but I'm not sure exactly how we're going to cue it up. And so Robert and Kaylee back again.
Hi, and Pippa too.
And Pippa. So for those of you listening on podcasts, you probably can't really see Pippa because you're listening in. And you may not be able to hear her because she's usually pretty quiet. But for those of you watching this, the video version of this on whether it's YouTube or LinkedIn or whatever, you see Miss Pippa.
And it's her birthday Sunday, so happy birthday,
Happy
Pippa.
birthday, Pippa. 4 years old.
Yeah. Woo-hoo, that's exciting.
So,
She's still a young pup.
yeah, she's still a young pup. So we got a exciting topic today, honey, because you know I love this topic.
This is one that's near and dear to your heart.
To my heart. I'm on a crusade on this topic. Ever since I've been doing marketing consulting, really over the last 4 or 5 years, especially these last 4 years, really started to really address this topic. And it's based on the title. This episode is called The Guaranteed Marketing Strategy to Increase Profits. That sounds like a bold approach, and it sounds like I'm just trying to sell tickets to something because you said there's no such thing as guarantee, right? So I'm going to be bold enough to say this is a guaranteed approach to increase your profits.
And I'm really excited about it too, because being raised in an entrepreneur family, you see so many good services, great business, innovative people out there, but they're just really struggling in this area. And it's so sad to see when they put so much time and energy and their life into their business and aren't able to make a profit.
Yeah, or they make a profit, but it's not enough to really keep them sustainable.
Yeah, that's true.
And so this topic is very near and dear to my heart. I've been on a crusade by this. I've even got nicknames about this for me. I even have on my LinkedIn profile, I have a little ebook on this as well. And yes, it's an increase. So I won't say guaranteed to increase your profits. Maybe 99% of you, it'll increase your profits. So
How exciting is that?
I should probably hedge my bet in case there's that 1% that it doesn't help. So when it comes to marketing, there's a lot of noise encouraging you to do this type of marketing or that type of marketing, whether to do ClickFunnels, to do Facebook ads, Google ads, do SEO, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, they all may work, but there's usually a series of trial and errors along with time and money before you kind of figure it out in order for you to make it work. And sometimes, not every marketing approach works for everyone too. You have to figure out what approach works for you. But there's one marketing strategy that every business has to implement and then when done right, will either make or break you. I think as you implement this strategy, it really sets the stage of how you are profitable or not, or just struggling. So when you put this strategy in action, the moment you put this in action, it will increase your profits. It's not like when you do typical, when you do, like I said, Facebook ads or SEO, whatever, where you have to do a lot of trial and error, a lot of adjustments, analyzing the data, and then seeing what you need to change or improve upon. So, and it takes some time, especially when it's a new marketing approach. But this one is an immediate return. It's not really a secret as far as the strategy itself. I mean, as far as the, anyways, we'll get to that. It's not necessarily a secret per se, but it's a very commonly overlooked aspect of marketing. But it's also one that a lot of owners are afraid to implement or change.
I think it can be one of the hardest for a lot of people, a lot of owners.
Yeah. So one of the issues, one of the, I guess, barriers to implementing a new strategy in this area is getting over the fear. And we're going to talk about that at the end. But we need to kind of set things up for a second, right? So let me give you a little bit of background in some generalizations about business. Nationally, the average profit margin, so when you look at the major industries or the most common industries, the average profit margin for business is about 6% after tax. Now, any profit's good, right? But unfortunately, this level for most business, 6% after tax, is not usually enough to consistently be able to reinvest into the business, whether it's hiring more employees to handle the additional workload or anticipated workload, upgrading equipment, or just keeping up with equipment, those kind of things. So, a lot of times it's not enough margin to be able to consistently reinvest in these things. So as a result, a lot of times either they have to go out for outside capital, whether in a term of a loan or getting investors, or when they don't qualify for either one of those, they just struggle.
Yeah, and it's really hard for them to be innovative as well, like trying to stay on top of the game and come out with the next new greatest best thing when you're just struggling to get by.
Yeah, because a lot of business owners, and you listening might be one included, that you have ideas of what you need to do to improve your business, but you just don't have the margin or the capital to invest into that. So we feel that at minimum 15% pre-tax profit is the minimum that you should try to achieve. That is usually enough for a majority of the business, not all business, to continue to reinvest into the business to make those continual improvements. And when you make those continual improvements, you're always going to be ahead of the majority of the competition, because when I set this up, the average profit margins are pretty low. And that means for most business, they aren't able to continue to reinvest and stay up the game, right? To continue to innovate, as you said. But at a 15% pre-tax profit goal, that's usually enough for most of you to actually do that, to keep reinvesting into the business, which means you stay ahead of the competition.
Right. Everybody else is following you, and that's where you want to be.
Right, exactly. You want to be the head and not the tail. You want to be above and not beneath. And so what is that guaranteed strategy? What is that guaranteed marketing approach? It's raise your prices.
Wait, let them take a breath, honey. Let them.
Yeah, because I'm sure right when I said that, there's all these things that are going into someone's head.
Yeah, so breathe, everybody. It's going to be okay.
Yeah, for some of you, you might be coming up with all these excuses of why you can't. And even a strategy about, even a rationale about why you kept your prices a little bit lower than what they even should be. Because some of you might really intuitively know that your price is a little bit too low, but you've got a number of different rationalities and marketing strategy approaches that you rationalize why you keep it that low.
And I think you're right. I think a lot of people do know, because I hear people say, I'm the lowest. I know I should probably charge more. People keep telling me I should raise my price, which that's a huge eye awakener right there, is when your clients are saying to you, I think you should raise your prices. That means they're willing to pay, and they're expecting to pay more, and they want you to succeed and be in business.
Yeah, we had a business owner we were helping a few months back, and as I was looking at his P&L statements and looking at his profit margins, I said, I don't think you're priced high enough. And he said, yeah, I know. I've had customers tell me that I'm priced too low. And so here's a case, as Kaylee was alluding to, where sometimes the customers even tell you should raise your prices, but for some reason you still don't raise your prices. And so obviously there's a lot of fear into that, fear of what prevents you from raising prices when you know for a fact you should. And we'll get to that. But the first part is, okay, guaranteed to increase your profits by raising your prices. Okay, here's where I can say at least 99% of you, this is a guarantee. You can raise your prices and make an immediate impact, immediate lift in your profit. So here's a suggestion. If you increase your prices by 1 penny, 1 cent, that all goes to your bottom line. That all adds to your bottom line. So I'm pretty sure all of you, so like
Most
I said,
do.
99% of you can afford and shouldn't be afraid to raise your prices by 1 cent. Now,
you can do it now. Come on.
Now, look at the volume, depending on the kind of business, but if you're a retailer or you have a restaurant, kind of business where you do a significant amount of volume, you take the number of units you sold over the course of a week and a month and a year, multiply that by 1 cent, and see what you get, right? If you just sell 1,000 units in a month, let's say a restaurant, they sell 1,000 units, 1,000 different plates, from appetizers to dessert, to entree, and even drinks and all that. If all of those units, you increase the price by 1 cent, 1,000 units is not, I think it's pretty conservative. 1,000 units of sales, you can probably do that in the course of a week or something. That's $10 increase.
Adds up pretty fast.
Yeah, then you multiply that times 52, and of course you get, what was it, 520? So anyways, yeah, you're saying, well, that's not much. So, but what we're getting at too is like, look, you can afford to raise your prices. And even though it's only 1 cent, it's still an increase in profits. But majority of you can afford to increase it more than that. In fact, you can't afford not to.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So here's the thing. So we're going to set it up here. We're going to talk about understanding what not to do as you're setting your prices, and then understand what to do or how to do it. And then last piece is getting over the fear. Because the first two is kind of the nuts and bolts, the rationale, some of the numbers and all that. But then ultimately, it's about getting over the fear of raising your prices. Because what we said earlier, right, honey, that even we've had clients that their customers themselves have told them firsthand that you should raise your prices.
Well, we've heard that from more than one client, though. It's kind of a common theme almost.
You're right, we have. So what not to do? Number one is just don't compare yourself. Usually what business do is they do some kind of, whatever the cost of goods are, they put in some kind of increase of a profit, increase in price by some kind of random number to get a random profit margin that they think is good. Okay. And then they compare themselves to the industry, compare themselves to the market, just kind of trying to see where they fit within the market. And then they set their price based on that. So a lot of comparison. They're always worried about not being too higher priced than some of the competition. So there's dangers in comparison. So that in itself, just basing your price based on comparison is huge. It's a hugely dangerous. I think I'm making up words. Hugely dangerous. I don't think that's the right. I know that's grammatically bad, but anyways, it's a podcast. I don't care. This isn't an English podcast. So, honey, we talked about this right before we got on. Comparison is a dangerous thing, both with a business and just in general. Comparison's bad.
Yeah, because how do you know, like, your product is the same as somebody else's? How do you know it's the same ingredients? How do you know it's the same service? You might look at something and think, oh, this is the same cookie. But how do you know it's the same exact cookie? There's no way of knowing. And your cookie is going to taste different than someone else's chocolate chip cookie because you're not going to be using the same recipe. And so it's very hard to compare, even though you think it's the same thing. A lot of times it's not, because we found in industries people were comparing the price. And then you did some research, I think, on one of our clients and found out that totally was not the people that they thought was their competitors. That they totally were not their competitors. They were in a completely different market, but the people they were comparing themselves to and pricing after wasn't even correct.
Yeah. So, when you talk about comparing yourself to competitors, it is dangerous because you don't even know who they really attract. Like, who's their ideal customer, right? There's when it comes to the market, in any industry, there's a broad range of demographics that will purchase certain types of products within an industry, and within those demographics, there's all there's a lot of variety in how much people are willing to spend for certain types of products, but not just what they're willing to spend, but what they value. So, you talked about the cookie, how the recipes can be different, the taste can be different, and all that, and which is true. And I'm going to actually give an example of how the same exact product can have a wide range in prices, because it's not just about the product itself. But one of the things that you do to set the right price is to understand what your value is. Based on the value, then you set your price.
Because if you're comparing, how do you know that they're even making a profit with the person that you're comparing your price to?
Right. There's sometimes, there are sometimes where you're setting the price to match a competitor who's actually not profitable, and that's happened too. We have seen that. So anyway, so I'm going to talk about a can of Coke. The example I'm going to give is a can of Coke, a 12-ounce can of Coke. I'm not talking about a 12-ounce can versus 20-ounce bottle. I'm just talking about a can of Coke. You all know what a can of Coke looks like. You've all probably bought one. Or if it's not Coke, it's Pepsi, whatever, right? But you know what a 12-ounce can of Coke is. Every time you go in a grocery store, you can buy a 6-pack, you can buy a 12-pack, a 24-pack. The price for a can of Coke can range from as low as 35 cents retail to as high as $1.50, if not more. And what affects the price? Because it's the same can of Coke, right? It's the same recipe, comes from the same company, in the same exact packaging. All the costs to produce that can of Coke is the same, no matter who you're buying it from. Ultimately, that can of Coke costs the same to produce, from one location, from one retailer to another. But why is there such a wide range in prices? And how can people get away with it, right? $1.50. Okay, think about this. I'm going to charge $1.50 for a can of Coke, but I know I can go to Costco. So if I'm at a gas station, I go in there, I buy a can of Coke for $1.50. I know I can go to Costco down the street and get a can of Coke for 35 cents a can. Now you have to buy a whole case of it, but still, at the end of the day, if you're really intent on saving money, and it's the same product, right? I can save a lot of money if I go to Costco. But yet, why do we are willing to pay, 3 times the price at a gas station? And if not more, if you're at a football stadium, and you're probably paying $2.50. So why can't we? And this goes to what we talk about value, understanding your value. It's not about just the product itself, but what is the value that you bring that's a little bit more subjective than just the cost of buying a can of Coke. Got any ideas, Henny?
Well, you know the saying.
Location.
Yes.
So at the gas station, well, it's convenient.
Yeah.
I'm gassing up. I'm thirsty. I want a cold can of Coke. Like if I can go save money at Costco, problem is it's not chilled. Well, you can get it at the vending machine, but it's more expensive at that point.
And there's other things too. Like if you're going to go to Costco, okay, if you're at the convenience store, wherever you're at getting your gas, you're already there. You're getting in and out. You expect to pay more. If you go to Costco, God love them, you're not getting in and out.
Mm-hmm. Right. So the convenience factor, I mean, it's there. And
you're going to end up spending more than $1.50 if you go to Costco too, because on the way out you're going to see all these other things
steaks and probably like a lawn furniture and all that kind of stuff. So next thing you know, you're out of there paying $1,000 for that can of Coke. So in this case, the value of a can of Coke is based on location. Why are people willing to pay so much more for the same can of Coke? They know they can get it cheaper. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes it's the service. You're in a restaurant, and again, the same kind of thing. It's convenient. It's there. Obviously, I'm not going to go down to Costco and bring my own can of Coke in, but it's also part of the service in the restaurant, and also the convenience factor. Right. So that's an example of to establish your sales price, it's not just simply by what are you paying for the product and then uplifting it by a certain margin.
Mm-hmm.
It's by understanding the value that you bring and then set a price based on that. Plus, your price, as you learned to earlier, you don't know what your competition's costs are. Costco can get away with selling it for 35 cents a can, primarily because they buy and sell in such volume that they purchase that can of Coke or those cases much cheaper than what the typical convenience store can get it at, right? And so, and having worked at Coke before, I know the different variations in price based on the volume in which people buy it for. So again, what you said earlier is when you start comparing yourself to the competition, you don't know what their costs are. You don't know what their business models are, their financial situation. There's a lot of things underneath the skin, underneath the hood that you don't understand, that some of these companies can operate on, they can have lower prices, and they're still making good margin because their acquisition costs are so much lower. So those are some of the things you don't know. So comparing yourself and setting yourself to the competition is very, very dangerous. So the first thing you need to know, so that's kind of what not to do, right? Just, doing a calculation of what's your cost of goods and increasing a certain percentage, comparing yourself against the competition. So what you should do is understanding your value, determining your value, and then set the price accordingly. So in the case of the convenience store, its convenience is its value, right? If convenience is a huge value, and therefore you can charge 4 or 5 times what the competition is charging for. Plus, you're not working on the kind of volume that Costco is either, so you just know you have to charge a little bit more to make a profit.
And convenience, you usually know you're going to be paying more for that anyway. So when people go into the gas station or wherever they're at, they're not surprised.
Yeah. So people are willing to pay a higher price when it makes sense.
Right. I know, like, I'm willing to pay higher, like, if for convenience, for customer service. If I know someone's going to take care of me, I can get someone on the phone. If I have an issue, if I can't figure out how to work something, I need to return it, stuff like that. I'm willing to pay more because that means more to me, as opposed to like trying to get on the phone, calling China. God bless China. I can't understand them. I can't get my computer fixed, whatever it is. It just frustrates me. So.
Yeah, so here's just 3 quick examples about understanding your value or understanding your strengths of your business, your product and service that it adds to your value. Convenience, quality, service. Those are just 3 of the typical, just highlights of characteristics of what adds to the value of your product and service. So you talked about service, we talked about convenience, and the quality. When you talk about quality, if you have a higher quality product, usually means you're also spending more into the production of that, whether it's the production of the product or even the delivery of a service, whether you're an accountant or a business consultant or whatever. The quality of your service, the quality of your outcomes of the service that you provide, will dictate or justifies a higher price than some of your competitors. So understanding what your strengths are and say, okay, understand your strengths and then set the price accordingly. So with the case of the Costco and the convenience store, again, the convenience is the value that justified the higher price, even though the quality of the product was the same as the competition. But the convenience factor ratcheted it up. So really understand what your value is. What is the thing that you do best, right? Because even amongst convenience stores, you can be right next door to another convenience store, but you can be charging a little bit higher prices for the same products that your neighbor's selling. Why? Maybe your service is that much better. You like Trader Joe's.
Yeah, because seriously, I go in there and people come up to me. You're not going to believe this. People actually come up to me, look me in the eye, and ask me if they can help me find something, as opposed to I'm at other places and they don't even want to make eye contact with me. If I'm like going to check out and if there's a check that has no one on the line, they will come up to me, grab my bag, and say, "Hey, ma'am, can I help you? I'll check you out." I mean, it's like, wow, it's good.
Yeah, so you like going to Trader Joe's. I mean, the food and all that stuff is great too, but I mean, the service. You go there for the service.
And they will open, if there's something you want to try, they'll open it up for you. No questions asked. They will tell you try things. If you don't like it, bring it back. I have done that, and they're great about that as well, because that's just part of their I guess their purpose or their mission statement is customer service.
Yeah. So really zero in on what is your strength. And then what you do is you match it up to the type of customers that appreciate that what you bring, your strength. So, you don't try to be all things to everybody. That's where a lot of times too, businesses start to set a lower price because they're trying to reach a broad audience. And so they try to set their price low enough to attract everybody, which is dangerous because all you do is lower your margins. And now you have to work longer and harder to make the same profitability than if you just set the right price a little bit higher, but then target the right customer. Right? We can't get everybody, just get the right people, the ones that really appreciate your value, and target them. Then you'll have the right marketing message, and the price isn't going to be an issue because you're attracting and you're targeting customers that really appreciate what you bring, what you deliver.
Yeah.
The last thing then, so that's kind of what to do. So I know we don't have a lot of time to get into a lot of detail, but those are the basics, right? What not to do, what to do, really understand your value, set the price according to that, and then just target the right customers. You don't need everybody, you just need the right ones. The last piece is get over the fear. So we can do all the right things. We set the right price and all that, and ultimately that fear of increasing price ultimately sets in, and it's hard to pull the trigger on that. Right? We've had a number of clients when it comes to the actual, okay, it makes sense. Yes, I know we have to raise prices. Okay, we'll be more profitable. Even if we lose customers, we'll still be more profitable. It all makes sense on paper. It all makes sense strategically, all that kind of stuff. But at the end of the day, when it comes time to pull the trigger and increase price, you get a little hesitant.
Yeah, this one really gets some people into a panic or an anxiety. And I think it stems from identity. Their identity is wrapped up in, I want to be the cheapest. I don't know why, but some people think that that's just a great thing to have the best quality, but they're even proud of it being the cheapest. And I think
so they're proud of having the best quality, but cheaper.
Cheapest price, And I think that ties in with your identity. For some reason, it can be challenging thinking, I'm not worth it. No one's going to pay it. I'm going to go out of business. And those can all be true as to how you're feeling, and your mind keeps playing these tapes about being negative. But in reality, chances are people are willing to pay it. It's just you are the one that is having the challenge with it. It's not so much the clients.
Yeah,
and
actually, we have seen
over the fear.
Yeah, I'm always a big believer that customers are very savvy. They know value, and they're willing to pay for it. In fact, I think business owners are more price sensitive than customers are. As long as your price matches the value, customers don't have a problem with it. The right ones, right? They don't have a value. And what you said earlier, that identity, we're afraid of the feedback. We're afraid of the negative feedback. That, it just takes one person to say, oh my gosh, your prices are too high. That one person, you'll go, oh my goodness, I need to bring the price back down. Right? But the reality is, you're going to have people grumble. We all want to pay cheaper prices. Right? But at the end of the day, we're also willing to pay if we get the value and appreciate it. Will you lose some customers? Sure. But you're also going to gain a lot. What we see when we raise the price at a certain level, about 10 to 15%. When you raise the price about 10 to 15%, we see the opposite. We don't see people losing customers. We actually see them gain customers.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Without doing anything different marketing-wise.
And we help, and we coach them, consult them through that, hold their hand, walk them through the whole process.
Let them cry on our shoulders,
yes.
Encourage them. They're there. It's going to be okay. Go have a glass of wine. But yeah, it's amazing what happens when prices go down. And we've heard this consistently that, oh my gosh, I got more customers, or I get better customers. right? Because sometimes, especially in a service-based industry like us, consulting, what happens when you raise your prices to what it should be? You might lose some customers, but you also gain customers and gain better customers. A lot of times the lower paying customers, the ones that kind of nickel and dime you, those are the ones that are a little bit more problems.
And take a lot of time.
And take a lot of time, right? Versus the ones that appreciate your value and are willing to pay, they just assume you're going to do your job and they kind of leave you alone. So when it comes to service-based business, if you're a consultant or coach, whatever, you'll be amazed that when you raise your price to what it should be, that you get better clients.
So when some of the challenging or ones could possibly leave, that opens the door for ones that are more serious and are willing to make the changes and do what it takes.
And what happens is when you pair off a few customers, you have a higher price, which means you don't have to work as hard to make a decent living. And now you have a little bit more time to give to your customers. And
sometimes you don't need as many clients either that way.
But like I said, when you have more time to even give them a little bit extra over and above a little bit of what what's in the contract, you have that margin because you don't have as many customers to take care of because you're charging a good enough price, and you can allow yourself to be more available even off what's in the contract, and that increases the value of what you deliver. Your customers really appreciate it that much more. They recommend you because you're delivering such great service. And ultimately, you start raising your price a little bit more because you're delivering such good service, and then they're willing to pay for it. And when it comes to like more on the retail side, when you have a product, like I said, when you get to about 10 to 15%, you actually tend to gain more customers, not lose them. Once you get over that, you will tend to lose some customers. But even when you lose customers, you actually make more profit. So again, it goes down to, instead of working harder, work a little bit smarter, sell off a less volume, but make more money. I mean, what's better? And your whole staff, you have more time. You can talk about this as power couples. How do we gain back more time to give back to our family? This is one way, is increase your prices to what it should be. Then you don't have to, work as hard. Or even if you're increasing in sales volume anyway, now you have the margin to hire more people to help you and take the load off some of the busy work from the day-to-day in the business, right?
To grow the business now.
To grow the business, absolutely. And so, just, raising prices as long as it's justified. And for 99% of you, I feel it is going to be justified, even if it's just a penny. It's like night and day. And then you have that margin to reinvest back in the business. I just got done meeting with a client, and they're looking at this year, over the 2 years since we worked with them, they basically tripled their business. They tripled the size of the business. They've been able to pay off their debt. They have a little bit left over, but they pay off debt. They've bought two new vehicles for their business over the last couple of years. They've hired 5 more people.
And that changes the community. When you start hiring people like that, oh my gosh, giving people jobs, that's huge.
And good paying jobs, because we talked about payroll, how we have margin now to give raises and bonuses. Also, they're growing. They're getting more customers. In fact, they're ones, again, we have to walk them through, right? They're going to do a 15% increase in their price.
Yeah, they were pretty nervous about
that. My recommendation was more, but when they came back with 15%, I said, okay, that's baby steps. Let's go with that. At least it's going to be much better than what they were. Fearful, right?
And I think they were barely getting by when we met them, weren't they?
They were doing okay, but they were, they definitely, their margins are good only because they were sacrificing their own salary for the margin. So again, when we talk about profit margin, the net, it should be after your salary. But a lot of times when you see the profit margins like 20, 30%, I always ask the question, is this after your salary or not? Because sometimes it's not.
A lot of
sometimes
times.
they just take a draw at the end of the profits. So this is after profits. So they weren't really, when you add in their salaries and all that, they probably weren't making as much profit as they really should be if they were actually paying themselves a salary that they're worth, right? So anyways, they were very nervous, sent out letters to all their clients, and they said, interesting enough, nobody said anything. The only thing happened is the checks came in. And they got another new client right at that moment. So I think the only time somebody said something, and it wasn't they weren't upset. It was just, I forgot what they said. They got one feedback from the client. I think it's something like, oh, they were wondering when they were going to raise their prices, something to that effect, right? So it's kind of funny. The only feedback they got from their clients was just the one that said, oh, it's about time. So it was actually what they're saying. So the only thing that happened was the checks came in with a higher price and they gained more business. So it's going to be okay. If you raise your prices, it's going to be okay. And if you need to do it in baby steps, do it in baby steps. But what we do is just start to come up with a rhythm or a plan over the next 2 to 3 years to get the price point up to where it should be. And every year, you should be raising your prices.
Because everything else is going up.
Everything else, yes. Inflation's been 2.5% to 3% a year ever since the 2008, 2009 crash, right? So every year, costs are going up. In fact, I hear this a lot. I hear, oh, my costs are going up. I'm making less money because my costs are going up. And I ask them, well, have you raised your prices just to keep up? And they say, no. I said, why not? Everybody else is. You're paying more. So why don't you charge more? Because you have to. I mean, why suffer? I understand the fear because I went through it myself when I first started consulting. I charge a little bit lower price than what other marketing consultants are doing. Part of it was, I was new to the industry. I was new to consulting. So my rationalization was that, I'm new. I don't have any brand recognition as a consultant. I really don't have much experience. And then one of my mentors told me I should double my price. And I thought even the price I had was still pretty good. But he said, double your price. And I'm like, what? I said, and I went through all the rationalizations that probably you listening are going through in your head. So what he walked me through was my experience. He said, who did you work for? I named them the companies. They're all 3 companies I worked for in my career, marketing and sales career, were all Fortune 100 companies. Then he asked me, how much do they pay you? What kind of bonuses did you get? What kind of benefits did you get? When you add up all your total compensation with salary, commissions, and benefits and all that, how much is that worth? And so, okay, now who are these companies again? How much do they make? How many billions of dollars a year did they make? How are you responsible? What kind of outcomes did you deliver for them in sales and marketing? And so we outlined all this stuff, and he says, so why couldn't a business that's doing $30 to $100 million a year pay you at least as much? And I'm like, oh, you're right. I said, basically, I was consulting. I was just happened to be a W-2 employee for these companies that entrusted me to develop marketing plans, to develop sales plans, and do the execution of that. And they paid me good money, good benefits. So now I'm helping companies that are much smaller than that. But why shouldn't they be paying me as much? Right now, I'm not full time with our clients, right? So I'm not being paid a full time salary but the fees that I charge should be somewhat basically equivalent, if not more, to what I was gaining back in corporate. So, anyways, he walked me through my value.
Yeah, it's amazing when someone comes alongside of you and encourages you and helps you do it along the way. Then it's not as fearful.
Yeah, and so it was still kind of fearful. So I understand the fear part. So even like I said, I understood. I got it in my head, but when it came time to pull the trigger, to say, to actually tell the next client, oh, this is what I'm going to charge, it was still a little fearful. But then when they signed the contract, I'm like, whoo, okay, so I just doubled my price. Since then, I've raised the price 50%. So anyways, so we understand the fear part. It's natural. It happens to everybody. What you got to do is understand your value. And it's good when you have somebody like your spouse next to you that can cheer you on and say, yeah, you are worth that much, because most likely your spouse is probably already thinking, if they not already told you that you're priced too low, they're probably at least thinking it. And so the minute you tell them, they'll say, yeah, it's about time, right? Something like that.
Good idea.
Something like that's going to happen, right? So as a business owner, we're probably the last one to realize that we're priced too low. All that to say, this is a 40-minute version of saying you're priced too low and you probably know it. or you're the last one to know. Everybody else knows it but you. So what do you think, honey?
Yeah.
How's that?
Well, I think they usually know it anyways. It's just
exactly.
doing it.
Exactly. So I hope this was encouraging for you. I know most of you that have listened kind of intuitively already know you're probably a little bit underpriced, but you did some kind of justification of keeping the price low because of volume, or or you're not as good as somebody else, or whatever the case may be. But just know that you are good enough to charge what you feel you're worth. And most likely, what I say is, here's a math project for you. Whatever you think you're worth, multiply by 50%, and that's about where you should probably charge your prices, right? So anything to add, honey?
No, I'm just encouraged by all the testimonies we're going to hear from you guys about how you're able to either turn your business around, make a profit, be able to reinvest. And so, yeah, just let us know. We'd love to hear all the great stories.
Yeah, and so if it's just by a penny, go for it. If that's what gets you warmed up to set your prices to where it should be, I mean, start with something. But definitely, you're going to see an immediate benefit to that. So it's going to be a guaranteed increase in profits when you just adjust the price to where it should be. So, okay. So don't try and do it by yourself. Probably have a little bit of a focus group or have some other people involved to say, evaluate your value and say, where should our price be? And then map it out too. Map out, okay, if we do if we do the same amount of volume, how much more profit is it going to be? Even if we lose some customers, how much can we afford to lose and still make more of a profit? So anyways, you'll be surprised at what happens when you adjust the price to where it should be.
Right.
All right. So hope this helps. And until next time, God bless. And
blessings, everybody.
Yeah, make sure to talk to your spouse and tell her how I love you and how much you appreciate them and all the great things about them, right?
Oh, I love you too, honey.
I love you, baby. All right. Until next time, everyone, God bless, and I'll see you.
Bye-bye. Thank you for listening to the Power Couples by Design podcast. We'd love to stay connected with you and provide valuable resources and encouragement for your marriage and business.
So you can subscribe to this podcast, connect with us on Facebook, Instagram, or go to our website, powercouplesbydesign.com, and get some of our free stuff. One of those free resources is our 8 Steps to a Thriving Marriage and Prosperous Business cheat sheet. We're here to help you build a thriving marriage and prosperous business. God bless you in your marriage, and see you next episode.